Well, it seems like another year, another re-release of classic Sega Genesis titles, this time on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. But how does this one compare to the previous collection, Sonic's Ultimate Genesis collection? Well, I intend to find out. Even before we get into the look and feel of the new collection, let's talk about what actually is here as opposed to what isn't. I compiled a little cheat sheet here using Excel, you're welcome, of all of the games that were unique to each collection. So, as you can see, the Genesis collection now adds a lot of new titles that were not in the previous one. We've got Alien Soldier, Biohazard Battle, Columns 3, Crackdown, Galaxy Force 2, Gunstar Heroes, a personal favorite, Landstalker, Light Crusader, Shadow Dance, The Secret of Shinobi, Space Harrier 2, Sword of Vermilion, The Revenge of Shinobi, Toe Jam and Earl, well, both Toe Jam and Earls, Virtua Fighter 2, Wonder Boy 3, Monster Lair, and Wonder Boy in Monster World. Definitely some mostly great additions, but it's hard not to notice the elephant in the room, and that's that both Sonic and Knuckles and Sonic 3 are no longer part of this. Echo the Dolphin tends to be hit or miss for people, but the Sonic games are quite obvious, and it's really shocking to see less of them here on this collection than before. People were already annoyed that the Ultimate Genesis collection didn't include the Sonic and Knuckles lock-on titles, and now this. It's a little off-putting. Not to mention the Ultimate Genesis collection included ports of other types of games from the arcades and the Master Systems as seen over to the right. They also included bonus interviews with the developers of many of these games, which made it feel a little nicer, a little more personal of a collection. This new version has none of that. It's, again, a little odd. The former also came with an instruction manual. Remember those? And here you can see the game room that they have set up for all of this. It's an interesting little setup. You've got little nods to all of the old games here, a Sonic rug, a literal golden axe, which I hope is just a toy, some very classic speakers, I think that's a turntable over there, some old posters, you have your game collection, your old CRT TV, but let's look into what you've actually got here. So here's the console menu. You can choose all types of different settings, some better than others, some of them gimmicky, some of them actually pretty creative overall. As you can see here, this is actually a hell of a little menu. You have all kinds of emulator settings. You can change whether you have CRT lines, whether you want to smooth out the footage, whether you want to change the frames. If you are playing the game in full frame, you can even elect to have the game stretched into the full screen. I mean, they clearly went all out to at least make it look very nice and smooth, and I'll say in that regard I think that they did a pretty good job, considering this is on a console, and if we're comparing it to PC emulation, this is actually just about up there with it. It's not without its own set of hiccups, don't get me wrong, but still an improvement. Yes, the classic static, the EMFs that we were always told would destroy our eyes in the 90s. Did it work? I don't know. I wear contacts and my vision's pretty horrible, so maybe. Let's look over here at the game library shelf. Each game is neatly assembled. You can also organize them however you want, set up favorites, all kinds of different ways to organize it that are pretty nice. I'm an alphabetized guy myself, so I can appreciate this. More than just the games themselves, however, you can also hit these buttons to see what else is included. You have not only your trophies and even leaderboards for all of these games. Oh, hey, look at that. Number 431. Wow. I am better than I thought, to be fair. The game also has an interesting set of challenge missions. This is something I actually really like about the experience. Some people may not care for these, though if you want to get the Platinum Trophy, you kind of have to care for them. Each one puts you in a specific scenario in each game that you have to get through. Like this one here in Columns, where you have to get a score of 5,000 when you're already midway to losing. For those who don't know, Columns is pretty similar to Tetris. There's some more difficult ones, especially if we're talking about Golden Axe here. I don't even want to tell you how many... Oh, never mind, it says exactly how many attempts it took me to get the challenge in that one. So there you have it. There's also, interestingly enough, a mirror mode for these titles, which changes up the entire game completely by putting everything in reverse. It's one of those things where I would have never imagined doing it or thought of a reason to do it, yet there it is, and I don't hate it. Little nitpicks here, and this is little, this is more just the purist in me talking. I can't help but notice the fact that these box arts are not, or the sides of box arts are not actual replicas of these games. Most of these games do not actually look like this from the side. That's a little off-putting. You would think that they could just get the actuals, but they didn't here. And I'll give you another example. This is a nice touch, I'll admit, putting the cartridge in and starting you off. But you may have noticed again that... I love that sound. You may have noticed again that the cartridge does not... It doesn't look like the real cartridge. Again, just why? Why go through so much trouble to put together a neat little hub room like that, and then not include that? It's baffling. Now when I hold the button here, I have the choice to either play from this view. I can actually keep playing with it on the CRT, the CRT TV, like this. If you really want that old school effect, you can add CRT lines if you prefer it, but it just doesn't work on this kind of TV. I would love that style on an older TV, but it's not really the same here. Something else a little odd that I noticed is that not all of the sound effects are exactly the same. The music is close, but there's little differences throughout that potentially ruin this. If you want perfect emulation of something, it's a little weird when you point out that it's been done better in other places before than any official product. That's concerning. That's actually really concerning. Just like most good emulators, you do get save states that you can save and load your progress from, which do help things along. Also, you have the ability to rewind time and rewind. Very Prince of Persia-y, just without the limit, I guess. And there's a fast forward button as well that can make you run through a level faster. It's interesting because if you go in reverse and then try to, like so, and then try to make it go forward again, it doesn't actually work. It's not bad. It's just another one of those things where I'm not really sure why they bothered to put the fast forward in there if they were just going to make it so you could run through something faster. It's there, but why, you know? Also, something to note here is audio settings. Though they're not anything special, they're there if you want them. If you want to change the ambient volume, which is a very specific thing to want to change, so I guess if you were hankering to do that, it's there for you, by all means. Now, something that is actually pretty depressing to me, and I think you may have noticed it too, is that there are no extras this time around. Nothing. No developer interviews, no artwork, concept art, anything. It's just the games themselves. Absolutely nothing else added to it. Kind of disappointing to see again. For all the work that they put into presenting this, you would have thought they would have done more to actually try to celebrate the legacy of these games, but it doesn't seem that they've gone and done that. Something, to put this on a good note, though, something I find interesting is the fact that this shelf down here is still almost completely empty. Now, why could that be? The obvious reason would be that they plan to add more games to it in the future, whether that's through some type of DLC or something else. I mean, I'm not going to get my hopes up, but it's something there that I still hope that we will actually see in the future. It would at least be nice, certainly. One other interesting touch, and this is something I admittedly did not expect. You'll notice that this game here says region. When I click, it gives me Streets of Rage 3, the regular one, or the European one, or the Japanese one. Now, in Streets of Rage 3's case, that's very interesting because the game, I believe it was called Bare Knuckle 3. It included a character that was very, very flamboyant and actually taken out of the American version for that reason. I was very surprised to see that that version of the game is now here, like as if it was nothing. It should be an interesting topic of conversation. You also have the Japanese version of Alien Soldier, which I also find interesting. I've never played the Japanese version of it before, but this now gives me the opportunity to. That was a cool touch. I'm glad about that. The games here also have online multiplayer features, so not just leaderboards, but for games such as Streets of Rage and for Gunstar Heroes, you can actually play cooperatively, which I think is, again, a nice touch. I can't imagine many people actually trying to use this feature, and thank God none of the trophies are locked into it, but it's there for anyone who wants it. Speaking of, if anyone wants to co-op with me in Gunstar Heroes, please do. I will be happy to join you. Everything else here, it's more just little visual touches. Other than that, you're really just getting the games and nothing else. No digital manuals, and like I said before, no real extras. Now, is it still worth the $30 price tag? I'm going to say barely yes. Main reason being, some of these games are not so cheap. Normally, Alien Soldier and Gunstar Heroes alone are going to net a lot more money for the original cartridge. But, you know, this puts them all here in one neat package. The challenge modes, again, are very nice and creative. I liked that idea. As far as how these releases are handled, you could certainly do a lot worse for what you get. Now, a hardcore fan like me, I can't help but feel a little disappointment over this, but at the same time, I still bought it, and I still don't regret getting it. Something else I found to be very unfortunate was that certain games actually don't function as well as they did on their original systems. You will actually notice little bits of lag and little bits of latency issues throughout each game. At first I thought it might have just been with one or two games, but it's actually with all of them. And it's strange that while we're playing on hardware as big as the PS4 and Xbox One, that we still seem to have these old issues. They shouldn't be a thing anymore, and yet here we are, with things buggier and clunkier than ever. Very, very odd and very, very disconcerting. It's something that they absolutely could, I believe, fix in a patch someday, but I guess I'm not really going to hold my breath at the same time. Here's hoping. It also needs to be pointed out that these games are all available on Steam right now. I believe they charge 99 cents per game on there as opposed to getting everything in a whole collection here. But the price is typically the same, not including Steam sales. They actually updated the Steam versions to put the hub in there that we see in the console version now. I've been hearing mixed results of how that looks on Steam and how well it works. Even people with high-end graphics cards were having some problems. I'm sure, again, that'll all get fixed in future updates, but just, again, odd to see, especially when the games themselves actually worked okay prior to this, but I guess we'll see how that all goes in the long run. In the end, between these two, it's really going to depend on your game preferences. Obviously, this new one has a lot more Sega Genesis titles in it, but then some of the losses, mainly the Sonic games, are going to be a very big deal to people because Sonic 1 and 2 aren't the only ones people are going to want to play, as great as 2 is. And that's a big deal for people. Not having the bonuses from Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection is pretty disappointing. It's just strange when these things have been in there before and now suddenly they're not. It's like putting out a new Blu-ray set of a movie that used to have a butt ton of extras on multiple DVDs before, and suddenly they're all gone in the new release. You go, what? Why? Why do that? And it's confusing. Another thing to note is that on Steam you can get the Sonic 3 and Knuckles Lock-On game collection. I think that one's typically $5, but again, you can get it on a Steam sale. It's still available. It further raises the question about why they can't fit it on collections like these, but again, here we are. Unfortunately, it's hard to recommend this other than for the most hardcore of fans for a couple of reasons. One, if you just have some nostalgia and haven't played these in a long time, try them out first before you go throwing money at them. Nostalgia doesn't always work out well when you come back to something years later. And then the other thing is, of course, it still has technical issues that need to be fixed. For games this old, that's pretty unforgivable. Personally, I am getting a little tired of seeing just Sega Genesis get the collections. I'm wondering where's the Sega CD collection, the 32X collection, I'll take it, the Sega Saturn collection. That would really be something, huh? Sega Saturn, wow. That would be real nice. And then, of course, Dreamcast 2. We've gotten a few re-releases of Dreamcast games, but still not nearly enough of any of those, so hopefully Sega will wise up and realize that we want more of that, too. We don't just want to keep seeing the same old thing come out again and again. This is fine, too, but more options. That's what's better. Hell, the Shenmue developers learned, and they're putting out HD versions of 1 and 2 now as a result of it. So, come on, Sega. Come on. If I had to give this collection a rating, it would probably be more like a 6 or a 6.5. If they fix all the technical issues, the latency problems, maybe I'll bring it up more to a 7 or a 7.5, but unfortunately in the bare-bones state that it is, even for the price it comes under, it's still hard to give it the full recommend. I'm sure it's still going to sell well either way, but these are all things that people should know about when they go into this product, that it's so empty. Even with the nice little happy room, it's just, it feels like it's still missing something, and I don't just mean those missing Sonic games. Anyways, that'll sum it all up. I hope that you enjoyed this, and please remember to hit like and subscribe for more games and music and comic fun, and I'll talk to you all later.